Imagine you're diving into the ocean, and at first, everything looks normal. The fish are the size you'd expect, crabs fit in your hand, nothing unusual. But then you keep going deeper and deeper, and suddenly you start seeing things that don't make sense. A jellyfish the size of a small car, a squid longer than a school bus, a spider crab with legs that span 12 feet. It's like someone hit the enlarge button on everything down there. This isn't science fiction, this is real, and it's happening right now in the deepest parts of our oceans. Scientists call it deep sea gigantism, and it's one of the most fascinating and bizarre phenomena in all of marine biology. So what's going on down there? Why does the deep sea seem to turn ordinary animals into absolute giants? And just how big do these creatures actually get? Before we dive into why this happens, let's talk about what we actually mean by giants, because we're not just talking about animals that are slightly bigger than normal. We're talking about creatures that are dramatically, shockingly larger than their shallow water relatives, sometimes by orders of magnitude. Take the giant isopod, for example. If you've ever seen a pill bug or a roly-poly in your backyard, you know what an isopod looks like. They're usually about half an inch long. Cute little things that curl up into a ball. Now, imagine that same creature, but it's over a foot long and weighs 3 pounds. That's the giant isopod, and it lives in the deep sea. It looks like something that crawled out of a nightmare, with its armored segments and dozens of legs, but it's really just a supersized version of that tiny bug you used to play with as a kid. Or consider the Japanese spider crab. This thing has the longest leg span of any arthropod on Earth, stretching up to 12 feet from claw to claw. Its body alone can be over a foot wide, and it can weigh up to 40 pounds. Compare that to the crabs you see at the beach, and it's not even close. Then, there are the giant squids we talked about before, reaching up to 45 feet long, or the colossal squid at nearly 35 feet and over 1,000 pounds. Giant tube worms that grow up to 8 feet long. Giant amphipods, giant sea spiders with leg spans of over 2 feet. The list goes on and on. The deep sea is basically a factory for creating oversized versions of everything. But here's the thing, it's not random. There's a reason this keeps happening, and it has everything to do with the extreme conditions of the deep ocean. To understand why animals get so big down there, we need to understand what the deep sea is actually like, because it's one of the most hostile environments on the planet. The deep sea starts around 200 meters below the surface. That's where sunlight stops penetrating the water. Below that, it's pitch black, completely and utterly dark. No photosynthesis can happen, which means no plants, no algae, nothing that produces food from sunlight. Everything that lives down there depends on food falling from above. Dead fish, dead plankton, dead whales. Whatever sinks down becomes a meal. Scientists call this marine snow, and it's basically a constant rain of death. The pressure down there is insane. At 1,000 meters deep, the pressure is about 100 times what it is at the surface. That's like having a large elephant standing on every square inch of your body. At 4,000 meters, it's 400 times surface pressure, and animals that live there have evolved to handle it. Their bodies are often soft and gelatinous, because solid structures would get crushed. The temperature is also freezing, hovering just above the freezing point of seawater, around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. There's very little oxygen compared to shallow water, and food is incredibly scarce. You might go weeks or even months without finding a meal. It's cold, dark, crushing, and barren. So why would anything want to get bigger in a place like that? That's where deep sea gigantism comes in, and the answer is actually pretty clever. Being big in the deep sea isn't just an accident, it's a survival strategy. Let's break down the main theories scientists have for why this happens. First, there's the temperature and metabolism connection. In cold water, animals' metabolisms slow way down. They don't need to eat as much, and they don't burn energy as quickly. This is called Kleiber's rule, which states that larger animals are more energy efficient than smaller ones. A big animal uses less energy per unit of body mass than a small animal. So in a place where food is scarce and you need to conserve every calorie, being big actually helps you survive longer between meals. Your body becomes a more efficient machine. Think of it like this. A small animal has a high surface area to volume ratio, which means it loses heat faster and needs to eat more often to stay alive. A large animal has a lower surface area to volume ratio, so it retains heat better and can go longer without food. In the freezing, food-scarce deep sea, that's a massive advantage. Second, There's the oxygen factor. This one's a bit counterintuitive, but stick with me. In cold water, oxygen actually dissolves more easily than in warm water. So even though the deep sea has less oxygen overall, the cold temperatures mean that what oxygen is there is more available. Larger animals need more oxygen, but they can get it more efficiently in cold water. This is part of something called the oxygen temperature hypothesis. Basically, in warm, shallow water, animals are limited in how big they can grow because the water can't hold enough oxygen to support a giant body. But in the cold deep sea, that limitation is reduced. Animals can grow larger because the cold water provides enough oxygen to sustain their bigger bodies. It's like the deep sea removes one of the main roadblocks to getting huge. Third, and this is a big one, there's the food scarcity problem. When food is rare, you need to be able to store as much energy as possible when you do find it. Larger bodies can store more fat and nutrients, which means you can survive longer droughts between meals. A giant isopod, for example, can go over 5 years without eating. That's not a typo. 5 years. Try doing that with a tiny body. You'd starve in days. Being big also means you can eat bigger prey. If a dead whale falls to the ocean floor, a whale fall. Smaller animals can nibble at it, but larger animals can tear off huge chunks and consume massive amounts of calories in one sitting. Size becomes a competitive advantage. When resources are limited, the biggest animals get the biggest meals. Fourth, there's the predator-prey dynamic. In the deep sea, there are fewer predators than in shallow water, but the ones that exist are serious threats. Being large can be a defense mechanism. It's harder to eat something that's bigger than you. At the same time, being a large predator means you can take down bigger prey, which again is important when food is scarce. You can't afford to be picky. There's also something called the metabolism slowdown effect. Deep sea creatures grow slowly, much more slowly than their shallow water cousins, but they also live much longer. A giant isopod might take decades to reach full size, but it could live for 50 years or more. This slow growth allows them to gradually accumulate size over their long lifespans without needing constant food. Another factor is reduced competition. In shallow water, there are tons of species competing for the same resources, so staying small and reproducing quickly is often the best strategy. But in the deep sea, there are fewer species, less competition, and more ecological niches available. This allows animals to specialize and grow larger without being outcompeted by faster breeding smaller species. There's also the buoyancy factor. In the deep sea, many animals have evolved to be neutrally buoyant, meaning they don't have to constantly swim to stay at their preferred depth. This saves energy, and when you're saving energy, you can afford to have a larger body. Animals like giant squid have ammonia-filled tissues that make them buoyant, so they can just drift and wait for prey without exhausting themselves. So we've got cold temperatures, slowing metabolism, better oxygen availability, the need to store energy for long periods, fewer predators, slow growth over long lifespans, reduced competition, and energy-saving adaptations like neutral buoyancy. Put all of these factors together, and you get the perfect recipe for gigantism. The deep sea isn't just allowing animals to get big, it's actively rewarding them for it. But here's where it gets even weirder. Deep sea gigantism doesn't affect all animals equally. It seems to preferentially affect invertebrates like crustaceans, cephalopods, and other spineless creatures. Fish in the deep sea don't always follow the same pattern. Some are huge, like the Greenland shark, which can grow over 20 feet long, but many deep sea fish are actually quite small. Why is that? Scientists think it has to do with how different animals regulate their metabolism and energy use. Invertebrates are cold-blooded, and their metabolism is directly tied to water temperature, so they benefit more from the cold water, slow metabolism effect. Fish, on the other hand, have more complex metabolic systems, and while some species have adapted to grow large, others have adapted to stay small and energy efficient in different ways. There's also the fact that invertebrates, like crustaceans and mollusks, have exoskeletons or no skeletons at all, which makes it easier to grow large in high-pressure environments. Fish have internal skeletons and swim bladders that can be problematic under extreme pressure, so they face different constraints. Let's talk about some specific examples of deep-sea giants and how they've adapted, because each one is fascinating in its own way. The giant isopod is probably the most famous example. These things are basically underwater cockroaches on steroids. They're scavengers that crawl along the ocean floor looking for dead animals to eat. And because food is so scarce, they've evolved to eat absolutely massive amounts when they find something. Then they just sit there and digest for months or even years. Their size helps them in multiple ways. They can break through tough materials like whale bones and shark skin. They can store huge amounts of fat, and their large bodies make them less appealing to predators. Plus, their thick armored exoskeleton protects them from the few predators that would try to eat them. They're basically living tanks. The Japanese spider crab is another incredible example. These crabs live at depths of 150 to 800 meters, right at the edge of the deep sea zone. Their enormous leg span allows them to cover large areas of the ocean floor while searching for food, and their long, spindly legs are actually an adaptation to the environment. They're like stilts that let the crab walk across soft sediment without sinking in. These crabs are also scavengers. They'll eat just about anything. Dead fish, shellfish, algae, whatever they can find. Their size means they can go long periods without eating, and their hard shell protects them from most predators. They can live up to 100 years, which gives them plenty of time to grow to their impressive size. Giant tube worms are a special case because they don't rely on marine snow at all. Instead, they live near hydrothermal vents, underwater volcanoes that spew hot, mineral-rich water. These worms have bacteria living inside their bodies that convert the chemicals from the vents into energy. It's called chemosynthesis, basically photosynthesis, but with chemicals instead of sunlight. Because they have a steady source of energy from the vents, they can grow much faster than most deep-sea creatures, reaching up to 8 feet long. They don't have mouths or digestive systems. They rely entirely on their symbiotic bacteria, and their size allows them to position themselves in the best spots near the vents to maximize their chemical intake. Then there are the giant squids and colossal squids, which we've talked about before, but they're worth mentioning again. These creatures are the apex predators of the deep sea. They're built for power and ambush hunting. Their enormous eyes help them detect the faintest traces of light in the darkness, and their size allows them to take down large prey like fish and even other squids. Their gigantism is partly about predation. Being big means you can hunt bigger prey and defend yourself against the only real threat you have, sperm whales. But it's also about energy efficiency. Squids have high metabolisms compared to other deep-sea creatures, so being large helps them store energy and survive in the harsh environment. Now, here's a question that probably crossed your mind. If gigantism is such a great strategy in the deep sea, why don't all deep-sea animals become giants? The answer is that gigantism comes with trade-offs. Being big requires a lot of energy to build and maintain that body. Even if you're more efficient per unit of mass, you also grow slowly, which means you take longer to reach reproductive age. And in an environment where survival is already difficult, that's risky. Some animals have found other strategies that work better for them, staying small and reproducing quickly, becoming bioluminescent to attract prey or mates, developing bizarre body shapes for camouflage. The deep sea is full of different evolutionary experiments, and gigantism is just one of many solutions to the same problem. How do you survive in the most extreme environment on Earth? There's also the fact that we've only explored about 5% of the deep ocean, which means there could be even more giants down there that we haven't discovered yet. Some scientists speculate that there might be creatures even larger than the giant squid lurking in the deepest trenches, things that are so rare and live so deep that we've simply never encountered them. Every few years we discover new species in the deep sea, and some of them are absolutely massive. It's entirely possible that the biggest deep-sea giants are still out there, waiting to be found. The ocean is essentially the last frontier on Earth, and we know less about it than we do about the surface of Mars. So why does the deep sea turn animals into giants? It's a combination of cold temperatures that slow metabolism and increase oxygen availability, food scarcity that rewards energy storage, reduced predation and competition, slow growth over long lifespans, and energy-saving adaptations like neutral buoyancy. The deep sea isn't just allowing gigantism, it's creating an environment where being big is often the best strategy for survival. But it's not universal. Different animals have adapted in different ways, and gigantism is just one tool in the evolutionary toolkit. What makes the deep sea so fascinating is that it's a place where the normal rules don't apply. where the extreme conditions push life to evolve in the most bizarre and unexpected ways. As much as I'm amazed by these deep-sea giants, part of me is glad they stay down there. Can you imagine if giant isopods started crawling onto beaches, or if Japanese spider crabs decided to explore shallow water? The deep sea can keep its giants. I'm perfectly happy observing them from a distance, preferably through the safety of a documentary. But the fact that these creatures exist at all is a reminder of just how little we understand about our own planet. The deep sea is alien, hostile, and full of mysteries, and the giants that live there are proof that life can thrive in even the most extreme conditions. Who knows what else is down there, waiting in the darkness? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about bizarre deep-sea creatures, make sure to join our Discord server below.